Before I get into this, I just want to thank the organisers for basically organising several cons, right? So they've had a whole lot of contingencies and stuff due to COVID and that sort of thing. I was on board a while ago, and organising one conference was hard enough, but organising all the contingencies and stuff like that just would have been, for me, it would have been a nightmare. So can we just put our hands together for the organisers? Right. So we're going to be looking at the past, present, and future of basically standards and where I think we're going for basically developers, their teams, stakeholders, C-levels, and that sort of thing. So just going to start off with two people types that I'm going to take through a good part of the talk. So two people types. There's the mainstream category, which targets less technical folk. That's like your stakeholders, your managers, basically anyone that isn't doing infosec as a job, and of course developers. And then there's type 2, which are basically your infosec, your information security professionals, which are doing it as a day job. Okay. So how do we used to measure the security maturity of the software that our development teams produced? So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff there, right? And that's the problem. So there's lots of docs to read, lots of standards to attempt to adhere to, and it was super confusing and still is if you're trying to do it this way. So I'm just going to walk through some of these docs now to for those that haven't seen these. So the Application Security Verification Standard. And they're all pretty long. So looking at like, what is it, 70 pages? Yeah, 70 pages. And most of these are sort of like a similar sort of length. So basically it's just a lot of stuff, right? A lot of stuff to get your heads around, checklists, and really stuff that's targeted at type 2 people. So the software assurance maturity model. A little bit shorter. These docs are all great for type 2 people, but for type 1 and for people just entering the security field and that, it's just a mental overload. Now this guy's a bit shorter than the rest. But this is predominantly just a checklist all the way through, right? Okay, so the approximately 75 cheat sheets that OWASP, that the cheat sheets project has given us. And yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. But if this is your first foray into basically getting security into your project, or trying to adopt security in your business, or you're not an infosec pro, then this sort of stuff's really quite intimidating. The various top 10 lists. So I've got the web top 10, the mobile top 10, the IoT. I think there's one or two others as well. So I'm just going to get rid of some of these. The SANS top 25. And the MITRE top 25. SANS. Okay, so a list of 25. What you'll see is there's quite a few similarities between these two. For example, there's some cross-pollination. There was one there, 119, I think, it placed 17 or something. Down here. So you've got lists, right? Well, okay, so we've got two lists here. As a newcomer, you're looking at that and trying to prioritize, you're trying to threat model. Okay, on one hand it's number one, and on the other one it's 17 places down the list. So it's not that important, so how important is it? Right, so there's all this sort of stuff happening, right? You've got the CISQ code quality rules. In fact, CISQ has got a lot of great content. But if you're a developer or a manager or anyone that's sort of organising development-related stuff, and you're coming into this, it's mental overload. And of course, the sys controls. A lot of us here are familiar with those. Great content, but just too much and too complex for type 1 people. So scary stuff, yeah? So there's been a lot of manual work. Sure, we had lots of tools, but most of them we had to drive them manually. And it felt like we weren't really getting anywhere. So going to the present. So many of us are still trying to hold on to the past. That's this. Or at least don't yet understand that there's a better way. So there's been significant improvements in the information and tooling available recently, like as in the last few months. There's some new standards that are starting to emerge and that are starting to reflect this as well. Security documentation is starting to grow up, and we have this newcomer, the NIST almost standard. So NIST's trying to make a simpler, smaller, more achievable standard that can be understood by both types of people, but it's specifically targeted at type 1 people. It's prescriptive, it's less intimidating, it's measurable, and it's concise. But it's not technically a standard yet. So let's have a look at it. And the accompanying doc. Cool. So there's 12 technique classes, they call them here. 12 techniques. That's this row here. And you've got a few technique classes there. Right, so that looking at that looks really simple, right? It looks like there's not actually a lot there. And there isn't. So if we have a look at the actual accompanying doc, page 4 has our abstract. Okay, I can't see that there. So there was an executive order to improve the nation's cybersecurity, which directed the NIST to recommend a minimum set of standards for software testing within 60 days. So this document describes 11, although it's 12, with the last one being fix your bugs. That describes 12 recommendations for software verification techniques, as well as providing supplemental information and blah, blah, blah. So there's 11 points there, and that's your 11 points plus your fix your stuff, which is number 12. So if we have a look at the contents, well, there's not much there, really. You've got all the supplemental material, which is, again, still not a lot there. And you've got these points here. So threat modeling, you've got, like, 2 paragraphs. And automated testing, a couple of paragraphs. Each one of these is super short and just really easy to digest. And there's a good reason for that. So I've taken the table from the new NIST standard and extended it to include a tools column. Cool. So that's our NIST standard there, basically. Yeah? And we've got some tools there. So these are basically some tools I added on that I consider to be best of breed, that basically satisfy what's required in those 12 techniques. So besides the threat modeling, so I've got 3 blue lines there. Besides the first line, which is threat modeling material, evil test conditions, let me get my mouse. This line here, and fuzzing. The rest of these tools lend themselves really well to being automated and added to your editors, IDEs, and build pipelines. So we now have tooling that automatically does what most of what we used to do manually. So our tooling's starting to mature, right? So yeah, just a bit of a, so we've got OWASP threat modeling cheat sheets, and we've got, so this is a book series that I wrote. It's available free online, Holistic InfoSec for web developers. It's available free online to read. I did a proof of concept in there, which ended up turning into a fully fledged project, which is OWASP Purple Team. Bit of a disclaimer there. Evil test conditions is also in Holistic InfoSec for web developers. The rest of these tools are, like I said, what I would consider to be best of breed and as cheap as possible that I could find, or free, which is even better, right? Okay, so let's look to the future. Oh, no, not that future. Gee. Oh, no, not that one. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so I believe for type 1 people, we were going as a mix of the NIST type standard with most of the detail being taken care of by automated tooling. This is all part of InfoSec commoditization and the evolution, right? So the way I see this happening, and it is happening already, is that the tooling is starting to basically teach those type 1 people. So we've got the type 2 people that are creating the tools, and the type 1 now, rather than going through just multitudes of docs and standards and just trying to navigate an insane amount of information, basically if you take the likes of that NIST standard, take those tools or similar tools, and throw them into your IDEs and your build pipelines and that sort of thing. Basically get them automated. Those tools will start to teach you or a type 1 people about security as you're going. So yeah, it's no longer a mental overload. Yeah, so as developers, you can expect to see the level of technical detail lifting so as to focus on more abstract topics and activities, such as verification as opposed to the hands-on testing that we've done in the past. Standards are going to continue to become higher level, and the tool chains will continue to increase their support of them. So, yeah, I can see all yawning. Relax. You've got this, type 1 people. There's no need to stress. With the new runtime application self-protection type tooling as well, RASP, just another acronym for you. So we've got the likes of Screen, HDiv, and some others. Your applications can now start to defend themselves without you writing additional code. So I'm just going to give you a quick look at the Screen docs. Okay, so with Screen, you basically consume a library. They target a few different languages. So you consume a library as a dependency of your application or service or whatever it is you're writing. You've got a micro agent in that library that sits within your running code, and it communicates with the cloud-based Screen platform. And it applies dynamic instrumentation to points of the app's code. So it's like aspects of aspect-oriented programming. It monitors your application at each instrumentation point and performs security responses as directed by the security engine that resides within the micro agent. So big thanks to the star of the talk, Max. This is my cat, my Maine Coon cat. This is where he normally sits when I'm working. And of course, you for listening to me ramble. Seriously. Okay, so as I mentioned, Purple Teams is a project I've been working on. It's at about 3.8 years now. It's starting to come to maturity. This is a shirt, as you can see. If you want one, then answer this question correctly. How many techniques are there in the new NIST standard? Who said that? Yep. No, you're right. But can you get the bonus? Which of the technique classes had the most techniques? It's okay, I'll go back to it. Actually, it's up here, isn't it? Dynamic analysis. Cool. So I'll give you a shirt. I'll get someone to take it to you soon. Yep, that's it. That's my talk.